Hey guys, tonight we're boarding a creaky pirate sloop with torn sails and bad ideas. Salt crusts your clothes, the sky is bleeding orange behind you, and there's that annoying sense in your gut that something's gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. Your first mate just dropped the sextant overboard. The map sink is running from seawater. And that eerie whistling from the crow's nest? Pretty sure it's not the wind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were supposed to be near the Canary Islands by now. That was the plan. Follow the western trade winds, chart a little loop past Tenerife, maybe raid a merchant brig or two, and be back to port before anyone's sobered up enough to press charges. But instead, your sails are full of a wind that wasn't in any almanac, and it's screaming southeast. The stars have disappeared beneath clouds so thick they look like wool soaked in ink. Your navigator, who definitely lied about his credentials, is below deck, weeping into a rum bottle. Your parrot tried to abandon ship an hour ago. Even the ship's cat, who's seen 3 mutinies and 1 minor exorcism, is hiding inside a barrel of dried fish. Historians still argue whether this particular storm was a freak atmospheric anomaly, a cursed front stirred by ancient shipwrecks, or something worse, something summoned. All that matters to you is that the wind has teeth, the waves slap with intent, and your compass needle now just spins like a child's toy. Here's your situation. You've lost your heading, your landmarks, and your patience. You're being shoved into a region of the Atlantic charted by precisely 0 European maps from the 17th century. And you're starting to suspect you're not just off course, you're off-world. You order the sails reefed and tie the wheel in place. The storm rips 2 ropes free like they were made of ribbon. Lightning cracks so close you swear it fries a thought in your brain. And then the oddest thing happens, silence. Sudden, absolute silence. The kind that sucks out your breath and presses on your eardrums like you're buried under snow. That's when you see the sky. Or rather, the hole in it. A circular gap in the clouds, perfectly still, with a tiny patch of starlight that seems wrong. These aren't your constellations. No Orion, no Big Dipper, no Southern Cross. Just a tight spiral of stars you don't recognize, like someone rearranged the heavens into a warning. You look down and realize the sea's gone mirror flat. Not calm, dead. The kind of stillness that sailors whisper about in taverns and promptly deny the next morning. You call to your crew, but the words seem swallowed. The rigging creaks too loud, too alone. Then, far off, just barely visible, a jagged smear breaks the horizon. It might be land. It might be your brain inventing hope. But either way, you order the ship toward it, because what else is there? No one cheers. They're too busy watching the water, where something large just brushed beneath the hull. Something that didn't leave a wake. By morning, you've sailed through the storm's far edge, though you notice it doesn't recede like normal weather. It stops, sits, watches. You glance behind you and realize the clouds are coiled like a spiral shell, unmoving. The wind's gone. The air smells different, less salt, more sweet rot. You're still adrift. Your heading? Unknown. Your spirits? Soggy. But your instincts start poking you like a splinter under the skin. Whatever's ahead isn't on the map. And maybe, just maybe, you're about to find something no other pirate ever lived long enough to name. The next morning arrives like a groggy hangover. Gray light seeps in sideways, and you wake to the sound of gulls that don't sound quite like gulls, more like seagulls doing impressions of owls. Which would be mildly hilarious if it weren't also deeply unsettling. Your compass is still spinning. A member of your crew swears he saw it stop during the night, point due north, then vomit a puff of blue smoke and start spinning the opposite way. You confiscate his rum ration, just in case. But truth be told, part of you believes him. As the day brightens, the silhouette from last night gains definition. The smear on the horizon sharpens into a jagged outcrop of land, black cliffs clawing up from the sea like fingers from a grave. There's green above them, trees maybe, and something that glints now and then, reflecting sunlight like metal or polished shell. The problem is, the closer you get, the more the island looks off. It doesn't sit on the water the way land should. It looms. And your ship seems drawn to it, not sailing toward, but being invited. Land ho, calls your lookout, voice cracking like a teenager on his first raid. You raise your spyglass. The beach is narrow, hemmed by sheer rock and dark forest. No signs of life, no smoke, no movement. Yet something about it hums at you. You feel it in your teeth. Historians still argue whether islands like this are geological flukes, uncharted because they're simply too small, too far, too fog-bound, or if some are what the old sailor folk call slippers, bits of earth that slide in and out of reality, like fish through nets. Either way, this one shouldn't be here. And then your compass snaps. Not breaks, snaps. The metal needle shears clean in half with a sharp ping, and one side sticks itself magnetically to your boot buckle. The other side floats up into the air for half a second, twitches like it's sniffing something, then drops into the sea. Gone. Panic doesn't explode among your crew, it simmers. Quiet conversations in corners. Superstitious sailors suddenly mumbling old prayers to gods they haven't spoken to since puberty. One man starts muttering about St. Elmo and how fire danced on his fingers last night. You saw no such thing. But you did feel your knuckles itch. You debate anchoring offshore, scouting the place with a longboat first, but the tide makes the decision for you. It swells. With no wind. Like the island is sucking you in. And your anchor? Never hits bottom. Just drops until the rope ends, then keeps going. So you choose landfall. You, the quartermaster, the cook, because he insisted, and two nervous deckhands pile into the longboat. As you row toward shore, the beach looks less and less like a beach. No shells, no seaweed, no bird droppings. Just ultrafine gray sand that glitters faintly under the oar splash. Like crushed glass. Or bone dust. You set foot on the island. It's warm. Warmer than it should be. The sand gives like flesh. And the air smells like cinnamon and rust. The trees you saw earlier are palms. They're broadleaf things with bark that peels like old paint and trunks too symmetrical for nature. One has faint markings running up the side, almost like etchings. You press your hand against it. It pulses. The cook faints. The quartermaster insists it's just nerves, but you've never seen someone pass out so fast after smelling a tree. While the crew tends to him, you wander toward a natural arch at the base of the cliffs. It frames the forest beyond like a painting, but the perspective feels wrong. The trees beyond it are larger, darker, more watching. You step through the arch. The birds go silent. A chill rolls through your spine, despite the heat. You swear your shadow is facing the wrong direction now. And something crunches softly behind you. You whip around. Nothing. Except, wait. Footprints. Not yours. Too small, too narrow. Clawed at the ends. Leading toward the boat. And then back. You walk faster. You find a clearing. Centered perfectly. A circle of grass exactly 30 feet wide. Inside it, a ring of stones, ancient and scorched. In the center, a half-melted bell. With no clapper. The bell has writing. Not pirate stuff. This isn't "Here lies Captain Redbeard." These are etched runes, spiraling outward like a whirlpool. You crouch to examine them. And realize they're moving. Not metaphorically. The engravings are rearranging themselves. Right in front of your eyes. Just a slow crawl, like moss in time-lapse footage, shifting into new sentences. One word at a time. It forms. You came back. Which would be fine if you hadn't, you know, never been here before. You take a step back from the bell, almost tripping over a stone as your brain tries to play catch-up with what your eyes just read. You came back. No punctuation. No explanation. Just a casual accusation from an inanimate object that may or may not be enchanted. Behind you, the cook has regained consciousness. He immediately begins insisting, loudly, that the trees moved while he was out. Not a rustle, moved. The quartermaster tries to slap some sense into him, which only results in both men shouting over each other about sap that smells like sweat and shadows that duck when you look at them. Classic pirate problem solving, more yelling, less logic. You try to distract yourself with practical thoughts. Like survival, navigation, and the fact that the map you brought, already water-streaked and rum-stained, is now completely blank. Just an old piece of parchment where coastlines and compass roses used to be. Even the decorative kraken is gone. That's when the sky changes. Not gradually, not with cloud drift. It snaps. One moment it's hazy blue, the next it's rose gold, like someone threw a new Instagram filter over the entire island. The air shifts with it, heavier now. Damp. Sweet-smelling, like overripe fruit. And somewhere, not near, But not far, you hear a sound like a giant snoring. Your crew doesn't notice. They're busy bickering over who gets to carry the last pistol. You notice. As you press farther into the island, the terrain changes subtly with every few paces. Soiled Amasta stones etched with symbols that look a little like nautical charts and a lot like ancient curses. Your boots land on roots that squirm slightly. You don't talk about it. Then, ahead, just past a curtain of hanging vines, you see it. A structure, half sunken into the hillside, built of coral and obsidian and bones so bleached they shine. A ruin, maybe. A house, maybe. Or a mouth. You approach it like you would a sleeping bear, slow, quiet, unsure if you're welcome on lunch. The doorway has no door. Just an opening shaped like an eye. Inside, it's dark, but not empty. There's a throne in the center. It's not gold. It's not carved with skulls. It's not even all that big. But it feels like a throne, an object not meant to be touched by mortals unless they're very lucky or very cursed. Draped over it is a tattered flag you half recognize. Green, with a white crab in the center. The colors of Captain Tobe Fairweather, a pirate who vanished with his entire crew somewhere in the Atlantic over a century ago. Historians still argue whether Fairweather's disappearance was a shipwreck, a mutiny, or a deliberate vanishing act, a pirate Houdini slipping into legend. But here's his flag. On this throne. On an island that doesn't appear on any map. The odds are about as comforting as a porcupine pillow. You find more evidence of past visitors. Rusted cutlasses leaning against trees. A pair of boots filled with sand. A telescope embedded in a tree branch 15 feet up. And in a rotted-out canoe near a dried stream bed, you find a logbook. Water damage, written in ink that's faded and smeared but still legible in places. Most of the entries are nonsense. Scribbles. Sketches of spiral eyes. One line just reads, "We are remembered here." That's not comforting. You head back to your own camp. What counts as one anyway? The longboat dragged ashore, a few damp blankets, and a pile of coconuts someone poked a face into. It's only been a few hours, maybe half a day, but it feels longer. Like time is chewing slower here. You sit by the fire your quartermaster somehow managed to start with damp driftwood and a whole lot of swearing. The flames crackle green at the edges. No one mentions it. Dinner is hardtack, dried fish, and tension. The air smells different now, less like cinnamon and rust, more like a bakery that once exploded. Someone asks what's the plan. You're the captain. That's your job. But you don't have an answer that doesn't involve the phrase "wait until the island tells us what it wants." That doesn't go over well. The cook suggests leaving at first light. One deckhand agrees. The other says he's having dreams already. About bells. And claws. And a sea that walks on land. He's not blinking as he says this. Later, alone, you sit on the beach. The stars have returned, but they're still wrong. A whole sky full of dots that shimmer like oil-slick bubbles. You try to match a constellation, just one. Even a fake one. You can't. And then you hear it. Not a voice. Not a whisper. But a hum. Low, constant, vibrating your ribs from the inside. It comes from the jungle. And from the sea. And from the sand beneath your boots. You're lost. Not in the map sense. In the you don't even know what rules apply anymore sense. You found something. Or it found you. And you're not sure which would be worse. The sun doesn't rise so much as tilt into view. 1 second it's dark, the next it's like someone cranked up the brightness with a shaky hand. Shadows wobble. Colors feel a little too saturated. One of your crew squints at the horizon and mutters, "I don't think this sun is ours." You don't disagree. The longboat, which you dragged up past the tide line, is now somehow back in the water, floating gently in the shallows like it never left. The footprints you all left in the sand? Gone. Replaced by a single, deep groove that leads into the jungle. Something was dragged. Not a great breakfast moment. Despite everyone's protests, and several curse-laced suggestions to just build a new life here with the monkeys, you decide it's time to explore further inland. If you're going to be marooned, you'd at least like to know who, or what, you're marooned with. You pick a path. It's not the easiest, but it's the only one that doesn't feel watched. The others follow, reluctantly, dragging supplies and muttering about sea curses and jungle ghosts. The cook has armed himself with a broken oar. The quartermaster now refuses to say the word island aloud. He calls it the situation. As the trees thicken, something odd happens. The jungle grows quieter, yes, but in an expectant way. Like it's listening, waiting. And then the smells start, first brine, then jasmine, then roasted meat, then ozone. They shift every 10 steps like you're walking through different kitchens. Or different memories. You break into a clearing so suddenly you nearly walk straight into a stone idol. It's massive, maybe 20 feet tall. Humanoid, vaguely, but with a head that's part squid, part lion, part absolute nightmare. Its eyes are hollow, and its mouth, wide open, is just large enough for a person to crawl into. Naturally, your cook immediately asks, "Should we see what's inside?" You do not vote yes. While the others poke around, you notice something near the idol's base. Scratch marks. Human-sized. As though someone tried to claw their way out. You say nothing. You're still hoping it was just a bear. A very literate bear. With fingernails. As you continue, the underbrush clears without effort. Vines slide away on their own. Trees lean slightly to open space. You're not navigating the island, you're being guided. And that's when you arrive at the altar. It's not some dramatic ruin. Just a flat stone table covered in bones, mostly fish, some birds, one or two not fish or bird. There are carvings around the base, worn almost smooth by time or weather or countless trembling hands. You run your fingers along them. They hum. And then the drums begin. Not drums, exactly. More like something hitting hollow wood with something very heavy and very bored. The rhythm isn't frantic. It's ceremonial. Deliberate. You can't tell where it's coming from. Every direction, maybe. Your crew huddles, hands on hilts. The quartermaster starts muttering that the island's communicating. You almost laugh, until you realize the rhythm matches the beat of your heart. Not a heart. Your heart. Every time it thuds in your chest, the drums answer. The jungle parts again, revealing a narrow ravine. At the far end, smoke. Pale and gray and lazy. A sign of life, or at least fire. You push forward, because what else is there to do, and emerge into a space so absurd it nearly breaks your brain. It's a village. Or what's left of one. Huts, low and round, made from wooden shells and something that gleams like beetle carapace. Empty bowls. A hammock, gently swaying with no wind. In one hut, a wooden spoon still resting in a pot of long cold stew. And in the center of the village square, a circle of stones arranged with uncomfortable precision. And sitting in the middle of that circle, casually gnawing on a mango like it pays rent, is a monkey. Except it's not a monkey. It's too tall, too still, and its eyes blink sideways. You freeze. It freezes. The staring contest that ensues lasts at least 40 seconds. Then it tilts its head, holds up the mango like a peace offering, and vanishes. Not runs. Not jumps. Just poof. Gone. The drums stop. You don't scream. That would waste air. But the crew isn't as disciplined. You hear the cook whimpering something about being fruit cursed. The deckhands are arguing over whether that was a monkey, a demon, or an ex-pirate with a mango allergy. And in the midst of this bickering, you notice something new. Painted on the far hut's wall, in charcoal or ash, is a map. Crude, but detailed. Landmarks you recognize. The beach, the bell, even the idol. And something else. A cave. A single word written above it in bold, jagged strokes. Danger. Which, of course, is where you're going next. You're not an idiot. You've been a pirate long enough to know that following a hand-painted warning sign that simply says danger is not how people stay alive. But then again, you've already followed a map made of shark skin, sailed through a storm that screamed, and been offered a mango by a spectral monkey. So really, the line between common sense and cosmic obligation got blurry 2 days ago. You stare at the wall painting a little longer. The cave is clearly marked, nestled between two claw-shaped rock formations and outlined in blood-red pigment. Below the word danger is a simple drawing, a spiral descending downward, deeper and deeper until it disappears into the hut's foundation. Charming. Naturally, everyone has an opinion. The quartermaster says the cave is the heart of the island, and if you want off, you'll need to negotiate. The cook insists that mango demons probably live there and no treasure is worth digestive possession. The deckhands are split. One wants to go, the other says the mango monkey gave him a psychic nosebleed and we should all just swim home. Historians still argue whether these kinds of spiraled cave symbols on Pacific and Atlantic islands were warnings, navigational aids, or invitations, possibly all three. Some French researchers even claim they mark sites where the veil between realities thins. That seems a bit dramatic until you remember your compass literally melted. You mark the spot on a blank scrap of parchment, your previous map, now entirely useless. Then, with weapons in hand and anxiety in various states of denial, you head toward the cave. Getting there isn't straightforward. The jungle resists. Trees move just enough to confuse you. Paths split in directions that shouldn't be possible. You walk in circles twice before realizing the trees are subtly rearranging themselves behind you. Not maliciously, more like a test. And then, the drumming starts again. Faint, syncopated, echoing off the treetops like bones tapping on bark. You begin to hum the rhythm without realizing. When you stop, the jungle hums it back. That's probably fine. Finally, after what feels like a week but your stomach insists is only 3 skipped meals, you emerge at the cave mouth. And just like on the map, it's cradled between 2 towering rocks that look exactly like claws. Probably coincidence. The cave is wide enough for 2 people to walk side by side, and tall enough to fit a full-grown crocodile wearing a pirate hat. Not that that's relevant. Probably. You light a torch and step inside. Instant damp. The air smells like wet coins and forgotten promises. Moss squelches beneath your boots, and the walls weep softly, dripping into shallow grooves that run like veins underfoot. Every few steps, the ground glows faintly. Bioluminescent moss or some kind of fungal prank. One of your deckhands touches a glowing spot with the tip of his sword, and it whispers. No one knows what it says. Not even him. But he's quiet for the next 3 hours and avoids eye contact with the shadows. You pass carvings, strange ones. Spirals, yes, but also eyes, tentacles, ships upside down. One stone relief clearly shows a man being swallowed by a compass rose. It's surprisingly detailed. Then you reach the main chamber. A wide, open dome, natural but impossibly smooth. The ceiling glistens with something that looks like black mirror glass, reflecting not your current expressions but your childhood faces. One deckhand screams. Another just stares, muttering, "That's my first haircut. My mom gave me that haircut." In the center of the cave, a pedestal. And on it, a single coin. It's large. Old. The metal glints dully, like it's absorbed rather than reflects light. Around the edges, words you don't recognize in any known tongue. But your brain tries to translate them anyway. Take me and be known. Tempting. Dangerous. So naturally, you pick it up. The moment your fingers touch it, everything shifts. Not physically, reality shifts. The cave doubles in size. Your crew flickers like candlelight. You hear a voice, deep and wide and full of echo, say, "One claims. All remember." And then silence. No one else hears it. Or maybe they pretend not to. Either way, the coin is in your pocket now. Heavy. Cold. Humming against your hip like it has opinions. You exit the cave slowly, blinking at sunlight that now feels a few degrees wrong. The sky isn't quite the right blue. The clouds are moving sideways. But most concerning, you recognize the path ahead. You've been here already. Only now, there are new carvings on the trees, your name. You didn't carve them. You freeze. No one else seems to notice the carvings, but there they are, your name, etched again and again into the trunks of nearby trees. Some shallow, some deep. Some old and weather-worn, like they've been here for centuries. Some fresh, still oozing sap. The coin burns cold in your pocket. You don't say anything. What's there to say? Hey crew, fun fact, I appear to be part of an island prophecy involving eternal looped identity theft? Not exactly morale boosting. So instead, you march forward like you meant to end up here. Like the jungle didn't just etch your soul into its bark. Soon, the trees part again. You emerge back onto the beach, but it's not the same beach. The water here is greener, almost glassy. The longboat is missing. Gone. No tide marks. No drag trail. Just vanished. The cook starts hyperventilating. The quartermaster, calmly chewing a sprig of something that smells like licorice and moss, points at the horizon. There, he says, see it? And you do. A ship. A full-rigged galleon, black sails furled, just sitting offshore as if it had always been there. No crew visible. No flag. No movement. But it's not yours. You know every curve of your vessel. This ship is sleeker, older, with railings carved into spirals and sails that shimmer faintly like beetle wings. One of the deckhands, Gibbs, the one who hasn't spoken since the cave, suddenly bolts toward the water, stripping off his coat. You shout, but he's in the surf already, flailing toward the ship like it's calling him home. He gets about halfway before the water around him bubbles and pulls. Not a current, not an undertow. A pull, like hands beneath the surface. You rush in after him, but it's too late. He vanishes beneath a glassy swirl. The sea goes still. He's gone. Historians still argue whether certain shipwrecks were truly accidents, or if they were drawn off course by anomalies like this, strange magnetic fields, hallucination-inducing plants, or the more eccentric theory that the sea itself sometimes chooses replacements. You don't have the luxury of debate. You have a crew member less, and a new ship offshore. You decide, perhaps foolishly, perhaps fatefully, to investigate. But you can't swim that far with gear. And you definitely can't drag the remaining crew through seawater that's now behaving like it's got opinions. So you do what any desperate, semi-cursed pirate would do. You walk the shoreline looking for a sign. And you find one. Literally. A weather-worn signpost. Just a single plank nailed to a stake jammed into the beach. It reads, "The guest house awaits." You have no idea what it means. The cook starts sobbing. The quartermaster, weirdly, laughs. You follow the coastline until you see it, another structure. Not ruins this time. Not primitive. A wooden house. Square, 2 stories, shutters gently clacking in the sea breeze that's just now started blowing again. It's painted white, though much of the paint has flaked off. A porch runs the front, and sitting on that porch is a rocking chair that rocks itself. You approach slowly. The jungle ends precisely 10 feet from the front door. Not one leaf crosses the boundary. The door creaks open. Of course it does. Inside, it smells of pipe tobacco and lemon polish. A globe sits in the corner, spinning, even though the window's shut. A table holds a tea set for 3. And on the mantel is a portrait. Of you. Only older. Or maybe younger. The face is yours, but different. Wearing a naval officer's coat you've never owned. Smiling faintly. And below the painting, a small brass plaque. Our most recent visitor. That's when the floorboards start humming. You turn, and in the corner of the room, a bookshelf slowly rotates inward, revealing stairs. Descending. You don't want to go down. Of course you do. That's the story. That's the hook. That's where the answers are. The quartermaster taps your shoulder and mutters, "Captain, do you hear singing?" You do. Faint. Female voices. Harmonizing. You take the first step. The air grows cooler. The sound grows stronger. And when you reach the bottom, you're no longer in a house basement. You're in a tunnel lit by lanterns that weren't lit a second ago. The crew stumbles down after you. The cook is trying not to cry. You pretend your hands aren't shaking. Far ahead, you see a door. Massive, circular, covered in barnacles and gold leaf. It breathes slightly. With each inhale, you smell different things: fresh bread, your mother's perfume, old gunpowder. You approach. The coin in your pocket pulses. And just before you touch the door, someone on the other side knocks. Once. Then twice. Then stops. You freeze with your hand inches from the barnacle door, and suddenly it doesn't feel like a door anymore. It feels like skin. Damp. Breathing. Listening. The knock still echoes in your skull. Not in your ears, in your skull. 3 beats. Deliberate. And now your coin is vibrating so hard you're afraid it's going to drill a hole through your hip. You look back. The cook is crouched against the wall, muttering prayers to a sea goddess you're pretty sure he just made up. The quartermaster has his eyes closed, but he's smiling like he's heard this song before. One deckhand has vanished. You don't know when he left. No one noticed. You press your palm against the door. The barnacles rise slightly under your skin, as if considering you. And then, with a noise like wet leather peeling from stone, it opens inward. The room beyond is impossibly vast. You're underground, but there's a sky above you. Stars that swirl in real time. A moon that's far too close. And at the center of the cavern, surrounded by titipools and glowing rocks, is a ship. A full ship. Moored inside the earth. You descend a spiral ramp carved directly into the stone. Each step has a name etched in it. One of them is yours. You don't mention that. As you reach the ship, sleek, black, polished like obsidian, you see someone waiting on the gangplank. A woman in robes the color of wet ashes. Her face is half hidden beneath a hood, but what you can see is familiar. Too familiar. It's your face. Or at least, your cheekbones. Your nose. Her eyes are the exact green-gray storm your crew used to joke about during card games. She nods. You're late. You blink. She gestures for you to come aboard. Historians still argue whether legends of ships in caves stem from actual nautical ingenuity, secret pirate dry docks and smuggler coves, or metaphysical anomalies, where vessels slip between timelines like oars through kelp. You're standing in Exhibit A for the latter theory. You step aboard. The wood hums underfoot. Not creaks, hums. The kind of low vibration that fills your chest cavity and says, "Welcome back." You're not sure who's welcoming you, or who they think you are, but there's a logbook open on the helm. And on the first page, dated 3 centuries ago, is a name written in ink that has never dried. Captain Elias Fairweather. And beneath it, the words, "He sailed too far and found himself." The quartermaster joins you on deck. "Do you feel it?" he whispers. You do. The ship is alive. Not with blood or lungs or heartbeat, but with purpose. It knows where it wants to go. And it doesn't require sails. Or wind. Or even an ocean. The woman, your twin, your echo, your future or past, beckons you below decks. There's a small table. A brass map that updates as you watch it. Islands drift. Whole continents rotate slightly. And at the center, the very island you're standing on. She places a hand over the image and says, "This place finds captains when it's time." Time for what? You ask. To go further than anyone else. A bell rings above you. Not a ship's bell. The bell, the molten one from the clearing. The one that once said, "You came back." You hear it again now. Only this time, it says, "You may proceed." And suddenly the ship lifts. Not sails. Not wind. The entire cave begins rising. You run topside to see the rock spiral upward like an enormous drill, pulling the vessel toward the false moon overhead. The quartermaster clutches the railing, howling with laughter. The cook passes out again. The deckhand who vanished earlier is standing calmly by the bow, his eyes glowing faintly blue. You decide not to think about that. The false moon opens. Yes, opens. Like a flower. Or an eye. And inside is a tunnel of water and light and stars and whales made of glass. You are not steering. The ship is. You are not questioning. The time for that has ended. The coin in your pocket melts, just dissolves into your coat, soaking through the cloth like mercury. You feel it seep into your skin. And for one glorious, terrifying moment, you see everything. Maps not yet drawn. Oceans that don't exist. Storms shaped like names. And 1,000 other captains just like you, sailing in ships like this one, on missions they didn't choose, to places no one remembers until it's too late. And then the vision ends. The moon closes behind you. And the sea of stars swallows the ship whole. You don't know how long you're sailing through the star sea. There's no sun, no night, just an endless shimmer of liquid light and the soft creak of a ship that shouldn't float here. The sails aren't raised, there's no wind. The rudder doesn't move. And yet the ship cuts forward like it remembers exactly where it's going. The quartermaster sits cross-legged near the helm, eyes closed, murmuring lines of poetry you're pretty sure he never knew before. The cook, pale and silent, stands at the bow and feeds bits of hardtack to a non-existent sea. You feel like the only one still pretending this is normal. Eventually, the light fades. Not into darkness, into fog. Dense and golden, like steam off a cup of tea poured by a ghost. And then you see it, land. Not an island. Not exactly. A shape, shifting between coast and structure and face. A place that looks alive in the way a coiled snake looks asleep. You dock, or the ship docks itself, really, at a thin jetty made of black stone. Ahead is a beach, identical to the one you first landed on, but inverted. The trees are white. The sky is violet. And the sand has lines drawn into it, circles, spirals, patterns that almost match the carvings in the cave. You step off and immediately feel the change. The gravity here is lazy. Your boots don't quite touch the ground with each step. The air hums when you breathe. And there, waiting for you on a throne of petrified coral, is a man. Or maybe not a man. His face flickers. One moment, he's an old sea captain, beard like tangled rope. then a young boy, eyes wide with curiosity. Then something else, featureless, flickering like fire under glass. He grins at you like you're late to your own execution. Took you long enough, he says. You ask where you are. He chuckles. No one ever knows. That's the point. He stands, bones creaking like the hull of a rotting ship. You're on the Isle of the Second Tide, and you're not the first to find it. He gestures behind him, and a tida-pool glows to life. Inside it, images swirl, ships wrecking, storms consuming fleets, sailors grasping glowing compasses and weeping as the stars vanish. Some find it by accident. Some are invited. All are changed. He hands you something wrapped in kelp silk, a map. The same shape as the sharkskin one the islander gave you, but different in detail. This one breathes. The islands move. Some vanish as you watch. Others appear. At the center, a symbol, a spiral eye. This shows only what you can survive, he says. It updates when you die. You ask how many have died. He doesn't answer. Instead, he leads you inland, through a forest where the trees bend slightly to let him pass. You see remnants of lives. A boot nailed to a tree, a compass frozen in place, a book pinned open on a bush, pages rippling without wind. And then you reach the amphitheater. It's carved into the side of a hill, ringed in candles that never burn down. In the center is a pit filled with water that shows the sky above. But it's not this sky. It's your sky, your world. Ships and harbors. Your crew's families. A port you once robbed. He tells you to watch, and you do, as the water ripples. The image zooms in onto your ship, your old one, still floating, crewed by strangers. And then it shows the deck. A man stands there. It's you. Or someone using your face. He grins up at the sky. Winks. Then the image shatters. The coral-thrown man turns to you. Someone had to take your place. That's the cost of leaving. He says it gently, like an apology he's given before. You ask who the replacement is. Could be a reflection. Could be your ghost. Could be the island, wearing you like a borrowed coat. He shrugs. Either way, he'll be fine. Probably. Historians still argue whether the stories of ghost captains are myths, fishermen tales gone stale, or echoes of sailors who touched something forbidden and left only reflections behind. You suspect the truth is more complicated. Back at the ship, the sails now shimmer. The hull sings. The cook refuses to board. The quartermaster walks on like it's a natural step in his day. You hesitate. The coral-thrown man touches your shoulder. This island doesn't trap you. It remembers you. Leave, and it lets you go. Return, and it asks, who are you this time? You board. The ship groans with pleasure. You set sail again, not because you know where you're going, but because you no longer belong anywhere else. The fog parts, and the island vanishes behind you. The sea ahead is smooth as silk, with a shimmer that doesn't reflect anything, like sailing across memory itself. Your ship drifts forward with no sails, no rudder, no crew touching the wheel. It just knows. And you, somehow, start to know too. The map pulses faintly at your side, its moving islands shifting position whenever you make a decision. You think about heading west, and the landmasses ripple. You consider turning back, and the parchment warms as if in warning. You're not steering. You're voting. The crew's gone quiet. The cook hasn't spoken since refusing to board. He just stares out at the sea, lips pressed in a prayer that might be for you, or for himself, or for whatever he thinks is following the ship. The quartermaster hums tunelessly, always with one hand on the railing like it's feeding him lyrics only he can hear. You spot land again, not distant, but close, shockingly so, as if it materialized beside you while you blinked. An island shaped like a crescent, with a tower rising from its center like a single crooked tooth. You don't remember seeing it on the map. You don't remember not seeing it either. You approach. No anchor needed. The ship halts on its own, sails folding inward like closing petals. The dock is made of stone too smooth to be natural, curving into the island like a question mark. You step ashore. Immediately, the sky changes. Not the color, the orientation. The clouds drift sideways, then curve upward like they're falling into the sky's own gravity. The birds fly in spirals, never flapping. Everything about the place screams wrong. But quietly, like a whisper in your teeth, a stairway winds up toward the tower. Not carved into the hill, growing out of it, stone steps budded from the earth like mushroom shelves. And carved into the first step in the same curling runes from the bell, only those who forget may enter. You climb anyway. Each step makes you lighter. Literally. By the 15th, your boots barely touch. By the 30th, you could probably jump and stay airborne a few seconds longer than physics allows. Your fingers start to tingle with memory loss. You forget what step you're on. You forget why you were climbing. But something in your chest says keep going. At the top, a doorless archway into the tower. The room inside is circular, walls covered in reflective stone that doesn't show your face, it shows memories. Scenes from your life. Some real, some clearly fabricated. In one, you're crowned king of an underwater empire. In another, you're being hugged by someone who definitely died when you were 12. And in the center, a table. On it, 3 objects. A compass made of ice, somehow not melting. A dagger that drips upward. And a tooth, enormous, old, still bleeding slightly from the root. You don't ask which to choose. You already know. You reach out and touch the compass. It burns cold into your skin and explodes into steam, but not before etching something into your palm, a new map. Just a small one. One island. With a skull for a symbol. And behind you, the reflection on the wall changes. It now shows you. Present tense. Reaching for the compass. But someone else is behind you, barefoot, cloaked in seaweed, eyes glowing blue. You spin around. Nothing there. You don't linger. Outside, the sky resets itself like a clock rolling over. You descend the stairs, which are shorter now. The ship waits, silent and humming, as if it knows you picked the right object. You board. No one asks what happened. But the quartermaster glances at your palm and says, well, now you're marked. He doesn't explain. You sail again. But the stars are different now. The ones above you are familiar, finally. The constellations of your world. The stars you grew up seeing on maps. You're sailing back, maybe. The cook finally speaks. I think we're being followed. You look behind. Nothing but water. Then the map pulses. The new island, the one marked with the skull, flickers. And beside it appears a second one, unnamed, moving closer. Historians still argue whether stories of ghost islands, places that pursue ships, are rooted in real events or sailors' guilt manifesting as geography. But now you know, some islands follow because they remember. Your ship creaks. You check your palm. The map is gone. Replaced by a single word. Run. You sprint to the helm, useless, really, since the ship steers itself, but it's comforting to pretend. Behind you, there's still nothing on the horizon. No waves. No sails. Just water behaving a little too well. Still, glossy, indifferent. But you feel it. A presence. Growing. Watching. Closing. The quartermaster joins you at the wheel, staring dead ahead with his arms crossed. She's coming, he says, like it's someone you both once loved and ran away from. The cook leans over the rail, vomiting nothing. His eyes are glassy. He whispers, it's the island. A different one. One that eats. You don't have time to ask what that means. The ship shudders, once, hard, like it's been tapped by a giant finger. Then again. You rush to the side. Still no ship. Still no land. But in the distance, the sea's surface is starting to rise. It's not a wave. It's a shape. A swelling. And then it splits open like a giant gill and exhales steam so hot the air bends. The island chasing you isn't above the water, it's beneath it. A submerged beast that pretends to be terrain. You order the sails up, even though the wind isn't moving. The sails rise anyway, iridescent now, like oil slick wings. The ship responds, groaning with effort, slicing forward faster than any wooden thing has a right to. The thing behind you follows. It doesn't move like a current or a creature. It pulses. Each surge gains. Each breath pulls your ship slightly off its chosen path. You start losing things, little things. A barrel rolls off deck and vanishes before it hits the sea. The cook's boots are just gone. The quartermaster blinks and suddenly forgets his name. You know this, because he turns to you and says, Captain, what do I call me? Historians still argue whether tales of the sea maw, an ocean predator said to resemble a floating archipelago, were metaphors for guilt, or mutiny, or madness. But they all agree, no one ever outran it. You are trying anyway. You pull the map from your coat, hoping for guidance. The parchment is hot, then ice cold, then wet. It bleeds seawater down your sleeve and shows you a single escape route, a whirlpool. Lovely. And yes, just ahead, there it is. Spinning quietly, as if waiting for a cue. The ship heads for it without your say. The crew braces. The cook sings a song that doesn't rhyme and doesn't stop. The quartermaster smiles like a man remembering something awful. The whirlpool isn't violent. It's hungry. As you circle down, the ship doesn't shake, it slides. No creaking wood, no screaming wind. Just descent, like falling asleep mid-step. Everything goes dark. And then, impact. Not crash. Not splatter. Impact. Like settling into thick velvet. You wake up alone. Not on the ship. Not on any island. On a raft, maybe, or a dock that isn't finished. Beneath you, water, but not water. Above you, stars that blink slower than normal. Around you, fog that tastes like sugar and regret. The only thing with you is the map, now etched on your skin again, but different. It's smaller. Simpler. One line, one loop, one word. Return. A bell rings. Not the molten bell from before. A ship's bell. Your ship. You turn and there it is, rising from the fog, impossibly tall, now fused with coral and bone and gold that reflects scenes you haven't lived yet. You climb aboard, each step rearranging the deck beneath your feet. The crew's back. But changed. The cook is taller now, and speaks in rhymes. The quartermaster glows faintly. One of the deckhands is now just shadow in the shape of a man. You are, apparently, still you. But the helm is made of teeth now. The sails breathe. And the fog whispers a single phrase, over and over. One more island. You don't know if it's a promise or a threat. But the ship starts sailing again. And you don't try to stop it. You stopped pretending the ship needs your direction. It knows where it's going, and frankly, it's better at pretending not to be afraid than you are. The sea around you no longer behaves like sea. It's more like thick silk, a slightly glowing fabric folding beneath the hull with every rise and turn. The stars pulse softly above, dimming and brightening in rhythm, as if you're sailing through the slow, patient breath of some cosmic beast. Ahead, land again. A new island, smaller than the others, with trees that appear carved rather than grown, symmetrical, identical in height and width, trunks rising in perfect spirals. The entire island feels intentional, artificial, even, like it was made for you. The ship slows of its own accord. No anchor drops. It just halts with a long exhale from the sails. You step off onto a dock that wasn't there 10 seconds ago, now fully formed and waiting. The quartermaster disembarks behind you, humming a lullaby in a language you don't recognize. The cook refuses to leave the ship, muttering that he had a dream about this place and it ended with his teeth turning into keys. The beach is clean. Too clean. The sand glitters like it was combed. And at the edge of the jungle stands something you can't immediately name, a statue, maybe, or a device. It's a column of gears, coral, and bronze limbs, gently ticking without motion. When you approach, it unfolds slightly, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into the sand. Naturally, you descend. Below, the air grows warmer, not unpleasant, but oddly comforting, like being wrapped in a blanket that smells like childhood. The stairs open into a chamber lit by glowing roots. And in the center, something you didn't expect, a table set for a meal. 3 chairs. One place untouched. The other 2, occupied. They're skeletons. Dressed like pirates. Still holding cutlery. One of them is wearing a familiar coat, yours. Or at least a version of it. You approach and realize, it's not just a pirate, it's you again. But older. Grinning, with teeth filed to points. The other skeleton is smiling too, though the smile is too wide, stretching into the jaw. The eye sockets glow faintly. On the table sits a single dish. A compass, split in 2, its halves spinning in opposite directions. Around it, scattered gold coins etched with unfamiliar symbols, curved, organic, like they grew that way. One of the coins pulses. You reach for it. The skeleton in your coat twitches. You pull your hand back. Then a voice from behind says, "He doesn't like when you take the easy path." You spin. No one's there. But a draft circles the room, and the gold coins rattle like teeth on tile. You take the coin anyway. The room begins to flicker. Not collapse, flicker. Like you're in the memory of a place, not the place itself. The air tastes like ink. Your ears pop. And for just 1 second, the glowing roots form shapes, words, maybe, curling phrases like, "You've eaten your own trail." The map on your arm shifts again. Now there are 2 loops, overlapping. And in the center, not a skull this time, but an eye. Historians still argue whether ancient pirates used tattoos as navigational maps, hidden lore encrypted in body art, or just drunken decoration. But they never explain why some of those tattoos kept changing. You rush up the stairs as the flickering grows worse. Above, the trees now move slightly, swaying not with the wind but with your heartbeat. The ship waits. So does the cook, shaking now, eyes fixed on a point just past your shoulder. "There's another version of you in the trees," he says quietly. "You don't look. You bored." As the ship pulls away, you see movement on the beach. A figure in your coat, smiling your smile. It waves. Then it turns and walks back into the jungle. You look to the quartermaster for explanation. He only shrugs. "You ever wonder what happens when you leave pieces of yourself behind?" he asks. You don't answer. The ship sails forward, deeper into the star sea. The wind picks up now, real this time. The sails stretch wide. And far ahead, glowing faintly through the mist, is a new horizon. But you can already tell, it's watching you back. You sail into the horizon's watchful glow with the unease of a guest overstaying their welcome. The sea has shifted again, no longer the soft glowing silk from before, now it's a black mirror, reflecting everything except you. The ship's wake leaves no ripples, and your shadow, when it appears at all, now faces the wrong direction. The crew says nothing. The cook has taken to scribbling symbols on the deck in salt, muttering to himself in a voice that doesn't quite match his usual pitch. The quartermaster quietly sharpens a knife he never uses, eyes flicking now and then to the map burned into your arm. Even the sails whisper sometimes, not words, exactly, more like the suggestion of language in the flapping. One night you wake from a half-dream and swear you heard them say, "Almost home." Ahead, land emerges. Not dramatically. Just appears. One moment there's only sea, the next, an island. Small, green, peaceful. It looks normal, which is immediately suspicious. A white beach. Palm trees. Birds that chirp like birds should. You half expect a postcard to rise out of the water with the words "Wish you were here." But there's a structure at the center of the island. A dome, made of what looks like interwoven bone and seashell. Odd, yes, but oddly elegant. As you approach, you see others. Not people, things. Shapes. Faded outlines of humanoid figures walking through the trees. Not ghosts. More like echoes. The ship docks on its own. Again. No surprise anymore. You disembark and immediately feel it. Gravity's too soft, the light too kind. Your feet sink just a bit deeper than they should. The wind pauses when you stop walking, as if waiting for your next move. You enter the dome. Inside is silence. Deep silence. The kind that presses on your chest like you're underwater. The walls are covered in carvings, not drawings, not runes. Faces. Hundreds of them. All pirates. Some laughing. Some screaming. Some asleep. And one of them is yours. You step closer and realize the faces aren't carved. They're grown. The wall pulses faintly. Breathes. One of the eyes nearest your own face blinks. You do not scream. You've passed that phase. At the center of the room is a long banquet table, full of food, steamed crab, roasted fruit, breads that seem warm. Everything smells delicious. The cook lunges forward, ready to devour, but you grab his arm. Because you notice what's wrong. No chairs. No silverware. Just food, beautifully laid out, untouched. And a sign in front of it all. Feast of the Forgotten. Do not partake. Naturally, the quartermaster is already chewing a piece of fruit before you can stop him. His pupils shrink. He smiles. Then sits down cross-legged and begins whispering in a dead language, one that, unfortunately, you understand. You ask him what he sees. He replies, "Home. But older. Before my bones were heavy." You try to lead him out. He won't budge. You slap the fruit from his hand. It vanishes mid-fall. The table has reset. The walls are louder now. The faces chant something. Words made of wind and water. And one phrase repeats. "He who feasts must remain." You grab the cook, he hasn't eaten, thankfully, and run. The dome doesn't stop you. It lets you go. Which is worse, somehow. You escape something that wanted you to escape. That's a game. And you're a player. You make it back to the ship. The quartermaster stays behind. You didn't order him to. He chose to. Said the dome was cleaner than his soul's ledger, whatever that means. You leave without him. As you sail away, the island gently collapses behind you, softly, like a tide pulling sand back into the sea. The trees melt. The beach disappears. The dome crumples inward, one polite fold at a time. The cook sobs. Quietly. You check your arm. The map has changed again. The spiral has stopped spinning. The eye is closed. And below it, new lines form, a tunnel. A descent. Historians still argue whether these stories of underground banquets were borrowed from Greek myths, like Hades' feast, where one bite seals your fate, or if they're based on real rites, sailors who ate forbidden fruit and forgot their names. But you know now, firsthand, the price of a single bite. You don't eat. Not now. Not ever again. The ship sails on. No destination in sight. But you feel it. The descent has already begun. The descent isn't a plunge, it's a slow, steady tilt. The kind that creeps up on you, like age or bad habits. You don't feel it at first. Just a slight pull forward when you walk. The stairs down to the hold seem a little steeper. The stars above appear lower, like they're crouching. Then the deck starts to list slightly to port, despite the calm sea. The ropes tighten. The boards groan. The ship's sinking, but not into water. Into something else. The cook refuses to go below deck anymore. Says he hears voices there now. Singing, always singing. You went down to check, just once. And yes, there were voices. Harmonizing in languages that shouldn't share a rhythm. One of them sounded like you. You started to notice things missing. Small things at first. Your boots are never where you left them. The compass on your belt vanished completely, replaced with a small, black stone that hums when you lie. You haven't figured out how it knows. One night, you dream of a staircase spiraling down into darkness. Each step is made of ship planks, some you recognize. One has your handwriting carved into it. You try to turn back. You can't. Something behind you whispers, you've already descended further than most. You wake to find the map on your arm glowing faintly. Not hot, not painful. Just aware. Ahead, a shape on the horizon. Not an island. A pit. The sea bends down into it, like water being sucked into a drain. But it's slow, deliberate, and wide enough to swallow an entire fleet. Your ship adjusts course without your permission and heads straight toward it. The cook begs to be tied to the mast. You oblige, unsure if you're protecting him or yourselves. As the ship tips gently into the whirlpool's lip, things begin to change. The sky peels back. Yes, peels. A seam opens where two stars intersect, and beyond it is light, not sunlight. Not moonlight. Just light, raw, and too old to name. You glimpse shadows swimming behind it. Massive, slow-moving. Some with sails. The water loses its reflection. You lean over the rail and see not yourself, but an empty deck. No crew. No cook. No ship. Just absence. You pull back quickly. Then, in the middle of all this madness, the singing returns, louder now, unmistakable. Coming from the hold. And it's not just sound. It's pressure. It insists. You descend again, against all instincts. The steps stretch longer than they did before. You pass levels you don't remember building. Doors that weren't there. One of them opens on its own. Inside, a banquet hall. Not the one from the dome, this one is yours. Familiar. Wood grain like your first ship. Lanterns swinging gently. And at the end of the table sits you. Again. But this one's different. Older. Sadder. Wearing a captain's coat stitched with thread that moves. He stands as you enter, eyes hollow but kind. You're late, he says. Late for what? For remembering. He points at the wall. There's a mural there, your life. Not just your memories. Your futures. You, in battles you never fought. You, escaping prisons you never entered. You, crowned, crucified, vanished. All possibilities at once. This older version steps forward, places something in your hand. It's a bell. Small. Rusted. You'll know when to ring it, he says. You blink. He's gone. You rush back topside. The ship is in the eye now. No wind, no sea, just quiet, heavy and holy. The cook weeps silently. A feather you don't recognize drifts past your nose and lands on your arm. It hisses and vanishes. You feel something shift behind you. A presence. Gentle. Expectant. You raise the bell. It's warm. You ring it. The sound isn't loud, but it's everywhere. It ripples outward in every direction. The mist retreats. The stars freeze. The ship halts. And then, rising from beneath the ship like a leviathan coming up for breath, is an amphitheater, carved into the inside of the whirlpool itself. Stone benches. Eternal torches. And in the center, a pool of water, black as ink, smooth as obsidian. You're not asked to approach. You have to. Historians still argue whether stories of whirlpool temples and sunken courts were sailor myth, metaphor, or misremembered volcanic islands. But here you are, walking down wet stone steps into a hollow no ship has ever left. The water pool pulses with light. And above it, letters shape themselves from mist. Show us what you took. You open your palm. The black stone. The melted coin. The map burned into your skin. You hold them all toward the pool. The water hisses. Then goes still. And reflects your face. Only now, there are two of you. Two of you in the water's reflection, one blinking back in sync, the other just a hair off. A heartbeat behind. That's not a mirror. That's a memory. A version of you that split off somewhere during this descent, quietly shadowing your every move. The double doesn't smile. Doesn't blink. Just watches, as if waiting for permission to become real. You lower your hand. The stone, still humming, crumbles into dust between your fingers. The reflection holds. The other you steps backward, into nothing. Gone. The water shudders once and turns blank. You're not alone in the amphitheater anymore. Around the upper edge, seated on the moss-covered stone benches, are shapes. People. Or the remains of people. Silent observers, cloaked in tattered naval coats, merchant robes, bone necklaces, and in one case, seaweed armor. None move. None speak. But you feel them watching. Not judging. Just recording. And then, rising from the center pool without a ripple, a figure. It's human-shaped, mostly. Head shrouded in kelp. Face masked in barnacles. Robes flowing like ink. It carries no weapon, no staff, just a book, open, and dripping seawater that doesn't hit the ground. You have wandered beyond maps, it says. The voice is in your bones more than your ears. It turns a page. You have stolen, surrendered, survived. Another page turns. You start to speak, but it raises a hand, webbed and faintly glowing. Silence wraps around your throat like warm velvet. Not choking. Not cruel. Just final. The figure gestures to the cook, who appears beside you without explanation. He's shaking, wide-eyed, but upright. The being places a hand on his chest. The cook sighs, and vanishes. No scream. No smoke. Just gone. You don't know if he's been erased or relieved. You step forward instinctively. Wait! The voice doesn't rise, but it deepens. One sacrifice already paid. Another remains. You turn. The quartermaster. He's here too. Standing on the lowest bench, smiling, hands behind his back. I was never meant to make it all the way, he says softly. You know that. No, you say. No, I don't. He tilts his head. Then why do I remember dying on the second island? You don't respond. Because now that he says it, you do too. He walks calmly into the water. The reflection accepts him, embraces him. A flash of light. A ripple. Gone. And you're alone with the figure again. The book closes. The debt is settled, it says. Now choose. A pedestal rises from the floor between you. On it, 3 objects. A key, shaped like a ship's wheel. A feather, long and translucent, with stars trapped in its fibers. A bottle. Small, unlabeled, half full of black liquid. You hesitate. The figure does not rush you. Historians still argue whether these recurring elements, keys, feathers, black glass, are symbols born from shared hallucination or universal archetypes. But standing here, in a flooded amphitheater that doesn't technically exist, you understand something deeper. They're all just different names for escape. You reach for the feather. It hums in your hand, light as ash. You hold it aloft. The figure nods once, satisfied. The world tilts again. Not a quake. A fold. The walls crease inward. The amphitheater implodes not with destruction, but with departure. Like a tent being packed up, the benches vanish. The watchers flicker out. The central pool collapses into a pinpoint of starlight. And then, you're back on the ship, middle of the deck, alone. Except not quite. A figure stands at the bow, back to you. Tall, familiar. You approach. It's you. Not like the reflections or shadows before. This one breathes. This one turns. He holds out the bottle. You take it. He smiles. And then he dives overboard. Gone. The ship shifts. Sails billow. A new wind catches your cheek. This time, it feels like real air. Salty. Clean. The stars above flicker like old friends. You uncork the bottle. Inside is not liquid. It's fog. You tip it over the side. And the sea splits. Not forever. Not wide. Just enough. And through it, you see land. Real land. With lights. Fires. Laughter. Not an island. A coastline. You sail for it. The feather in your hand vanishes. The bottle dissolves. The map on your skin fades, leaving only a small spiral where your wrist meets your palm. The whisper in the sails returns. Now you remember. The coastline approaches slowly, not because of distance, but because of doubt. The ship seems cautious now, like a horse smelling fire it can't see. The water changes first, grows clearer, less syrupy, more like the seas you knew. It glitters properly again. Salt stings the air. The stars above begin to settle into the constellations you remember from before. Orion limps into place. The dipper finally points north. Real north. You stand at the bow, watching it all reform, as though reality is patching itself back together in reverse. The laughter from the shore grows louder, normal, human laughter. Joy. It doesn't echo like a curse or drip like illusion. It just is. Still, you clutch the rail tighter. The coast comes into focus. A village of sorts, simple huts, flickering torches, figures moving about. No twisted trees. No breathing bells. No singing fog. But something's odd. Not wrong. Just deliberate. Like someone built this version of normal from memory. The ship stops a few meters from shore. Doesn't drop anchor, doesn't lower sails. Just waits. You climb down into a small rowboat that wasn't there yesterday. Or an hour ago. Or ever. You rowed ashore. The sand crunches beneath your boots properly this time. It's not singing. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't breathe. The villagers turn to look as you approach. Friendly faces. Not curious, expectant. One woman smiles like she's greeting a guest who's returned from a long trip. She hands you a towel. You haven't even gotten wet. You made it, she says gently. I don't know where I am, you say. She shrugs, almost kindly. That makes two of us. But we always know when someone makes it. The others gather around. Not too close. Just present. And in the center of them is a fire. No ritual here. No chanting. Just warmth. Actual warmth. A dog wanders by. You pet it. It licks your fingers like you're not potentially cursed by at least 3 spectral compasses. Then you see it, a hut, larger than the others, at the edge of the tree line, and inside it, through a gently fluttering curtain, you glimpse something impossible. Yourself. Again. But not you now. You before. Back before the ship. Before the island. Before any of this. Sitting at a table, writing in a journal. Smiling. The woman beside you sees the confusion on your face. Some pieces come home first, she says. Some take longer. You enter the hut. The air smells like your childhood, salted pork and old rope and lemon oil. Your old coat hangs on the wall. Your boots, ones you lost 2 ships ago, sit neatly by the door. And your younger self looks up, smiles, and vanishes. Just gone. A puff of dust. Not a goodbye, just an ending. On the table, a note. You've looped. Welcome back. Don't worry, you'll remember slowly. You sit down. The journal is blank. The quill beside it full of ink. You don't feel scared. Or cursed. Or lost. Just tired. But it's the clean kind of tired. The kind you earn. You close your eyes for what feels like a breath. And then you're walking through the village again. The sun is lower now. The villagers wave, go back to their chores. One of them asks if you want to stay. You ask what stay means. They don't answer, but they offer you a key. It's small, simple, shaped like the one from the amphitheater, but now it's just brass. Not glowing, not whispering, just a key. They say you can lock the hut, or unlock it. It's up to you. Historians still argue whether pirates truly ever retired, if the sea let them. If you could ever leave the tide without it chasing you. But you're standing in the answer, aren't you? Not escape, not return. Anchor. That night, you dream of the ship, still sailing. But it's empty now. Except, of course, for one shadow. At the helm. Watching. Waiting. Smiling. You wake before dawn to the sound of waves, real ones. Gentle, rhythmic, tugging at the sand just outside the hut. For the first time in what feels like years, the sea doesn't sound like it's speaking to you. It just breathes. You step outside and find the village exactly where it should be, lit by oil lamps swaying in the wind. The sky is just starting to blue at the edges. Stars fade without drama. No spiral eyes. No unnatural colors. Just morning. Still, something's changed. Or is changing. You feel it in your fingertips first, a tingling, like the aftershock of holding a memory too long. The key in your palm grows slightly warmer. You haven't let go of it since yesterday. You walk down to the beach. The ship is gone. You weren't expecting that. But you're not surprised either. It's like waking to find the tide has gone out and left behind nothing but your footprints. The villagers don't say anything when you pass. They nod, smile, offer a hand on your shoulder. One hands you a roll and a cup of something hot. Cinnamon and citrus. Familiar and foreign. You drink it without asking questions. The dog follows you. No leash, no collar. Just loyalty. You find a narrow path leading uphill, behind the village. One you hadn't noticed before, because maybe it wasn't there. Or maybe you just weren't ready to see it. The path winds gently between trees that look hand-painted. Their leaves don't shimmer or whisper. They just rustle. Sweetly. At the top, a bench. Simple. Facing the sea. You sit. The dog curls up at your feet. From this height, you see the full crescent of the village, the beach, and something else, way out on the edge of the horizon. A shape. Faint. It could be a rock. It could be another ship. It could be her. The island. Still watching. Still waiting. You pull the map from your coat, not the glowing one, not the skin-burned one. The real one. The one you carried when this journey began. It's returned somehow, folded neatly in your coat pocket. It's changed again. Fewer islands now. Simpler shapes. One clearer route back. But now, next to the place labeled simply as here, someone's drawn a tiny spiral. And beneath it, 3 words, scribbled in your own handwriting. Stay if you can. You chuckle. It's the kind of message you would have written for yourself. Cryptic, but earnest. A joke buried in sincerity. Or maybe the other way around. The dog perks up. Someone's coming. It's the quartermaster. Not glowing. Not haunted. Just him. You blink. He's supposed to be gone. But he walks like he never left, sits beside you, and hands you a small pouch. Inside, a tooth. A tiny one. Yours, maybe, from childhood. Or a promise returned. I remember this, he says. Thought you should have it. You ask how he's here. He shrugs. There are ways. He stares out at the sea. You don't have to keep sailing. But the ship will always be yours. It'll wait. Where? Nowhere, he says. That's the point. He stands. Walks back down the trail. You stay longer. Until the sky turns peach. Until the sea shines like melted silver. Until something in your chest sighs for the first time since the storm. That night, there's a feast. Not magic. Not haunted. Just food. People. Laughter that feels earned. You sit beside the fire. The cook's there too. Says nothing about the dome. Just hands you a mango and winks. You eat it. Nothing curses you. Nothing speaks Latin. It's just good fruit. Later, you walk alone to the edge of the village. Past it. Into the tree line. Toward a small outcrop where the wind whistles in an oddly familiar tune. You don't stop it. You hum along. And for a moment, the island hums back. You smile. Because you understand now. You didn't discover an island. It discovered you. You begin walking more in the mornings. A rhythm develops. The same path up the hill. The same quiet sit on the bench. The same glance toward the horizon. The same glimmer of that distant shape, never closer, never gone. The villagers never question you. They've all had their version of this, in one shape or another. Some have lived here for decades, others just arrived last week, but all with the same look of people who once tried to escape the world and found a different one instead. One morning, a child approaches as you sip your spiced tea by the fire. She hands you something wrapped in cloth. He said you dropped this, she says, and disappears before you can ask who he is. You unwrap it slowly. It's the coin. The same one from the cave. Melted. Gone. But now it's whole again, cool to the touch, its edge inscribed with a new phrase. All waters circle back. You pocket it without ceremony. No point pretending anything stays gone forever. That evening, the sky darkens early. Not storm dark. Change dark. The wind picks up and moves inland. Lanterns flicker. And then, on the horizon, the shape shifts. The distant island, the watcher, is no longer passive. It's moving. You stare from the beach with a dozen others. None panic. No one screams. But you see it in their eyes, recognition. That odd, reluctant greeting reserved for former lovers and unfinished dreams. The island that found you once, remembers. The ship returns with it. Just appears one morning, moored gently offshore, sails tied neatly as if no time passed. The deck is clean. The bell doesn't ring. But the ladder is lowered. And on the railing hangs your old coat. You don't know who brought it back, but you know why. That night, your dreams return. Only this time, they're clear. Not symbols or riddles. Memories. Exact. Sharp. You see your first ship. The mutiny. The storm. The teeth in the water. The woman on the sand with the coconuts and the perfect French. You hear the compass scream. The moment the coin first pulse. The banquet of silent pirates. All of it. And one sentence, whispered as you wake. It is time for the second route. You don't rush. You rise slowly. Dress carefully. Slide your boots on like armor. The villagers don't stop you. They knew this was coming. The dog follows you to the dock. Sits. Whines once. Then lets you go. You row out to the ship. Climb aboard. It greets you with silence. But it's a warm silence. Familiar. The kind you share with old friends. Your journal is still in the captain's quarters. Open to a blank page. You pick up the quill. You write. Day 1. Again. The sails untie themselves. The ship turns. This time, you don't ask where it's going. You already know. It's not retracing steps. It's turning the map inside out. Historians still argue whether pirates like you ever truly existed, the ones who vanished and returned and vanished again. They write you off as myth, metaphor, dream. But they don't know what it feels like when the ocean recognizes you. They've never heard a whole laugh when it hits familiar current. You smile at the helm. Your coat flaps behind you. And in the distance, past the usual waters, a shape rises. New land. Undiscovered. Curved like a question mark. Waiting. The ship sails smoother than ever now, not faster, just more confidently, like it no longer needs to pretend it's wooden sail. You realize something strange. It hasn't creaked once since you left the village. Not a groan, not a moan, not a single old board complaint. It doesn't need to. It trusts you now. The sea ahead sparkles strangely. Not the familiar glitter of sunlight on salt water. This is a dull shimmer, like moonlight trapped under glass. The waves are shallow here, the kind that roll in slow spirals. And on the horizon, that new land grows larger by the hour. You swear it's adjusting its shape. It's not a trick of perspective, it's responding to you. By midday, the island finally settles into form. A wide, sloping rise covered in soft purple vegetation, ringed by what appear to be doors. Dozens of them. Standing upright in the sand. Freestanding, freckled with barnacles. No walls, no hinges, just doors. Some cracked open. Some shut tight. One swinging slowly on a breeze that doesn't touch anything else. You drop anchor, or rather, the ship politely drops it for you, and row ashore. The sand here is coarse, peppered with flakes of obsidian and tiny bones. It crunches with memory under each step. You walk through the doors, not into them, just around, between, among. One door creaks open as you pass. You look inside and see a version of yourself waiting at a tavern table, older, laughing with people you half remember. Another door shows you alone, in a lighthouse, writing by candlelight. Another reveals you again, this time as a child, pointing toward a horizon drawn in charcoal and hope. They're not illusions. They're options. You reach the center of the island, where a shallow pool reflects the sky like a perfect lens. Above it, no clouds. Just one phrase written in flickering birds. You are where your choices converge. You step to the water's edge. Your reflection splits into three. Each face looks like you, but with differences. One wears a crown. One wears chains. One wears nothing, smiling peacefully. They look up at you. And wait. The ground beneath your boots begins to pulse, slow and steady, matching your heartbeat. The doors behind you start to close, softly, not ominously. Not punishment. Just closure. The spiral beneath your skin, once glowing, now itches faintly. You feel the choice approaching like a tide rising against your chest. Then a familiar voice. You brought the bottle, didn't you? You turn. The quartermaster stands beside one of the doors. Whole again. Human again. Less haunted. He tosses you a bottle, the same one from before, now full of mist and something else. Possibility, maybe. He grins. Just in case. You nod. No instructions. No riddles this time. Just instinct. You unstopper the bottle and pour it into the pool. The reflection vanishes. So do the faces. The water goes dark, then clear. And now you see it. Beneath the island, beneath the pool, beneath everything, is a stairway. Descending again. Of course it is. You step in. The quartermaster doesn't follow. Not my route, he says, eyes already fading. You descend alone. The staircase is made of memory. Each step is familiar, a conversation, a lost object, a near-death laugh. Your boots echo softly as you pass by glowing vignettes, the mango demon offering peace. The bell with the message. The ship screaming into the whirlpool. The cook asleep on the deck, smiling. You pass them like old friends at the end of a party. Finally, at the bottom, a chamber. A single chair. And in it, you. Old. Quiet. Still. You sit across from yourself. Neither of you speaks. Instead, he reaches into his coat and hands you the map. The real one. The final one. It has no ink. Just texture. Etched into the surface is one spiral, leading to a center that isn't there. You look up. Your older self has vanished. You pocket the map. And start walking, not up, not down, forward. Because that's the only direction left. You walk for what feels like hours. Maybe longer. There's no sun to mark time anymore, just a soft luminescence that pulses from beneath the ground, like the heartbeat of the island itself. The path doesn't wind. It doesn't rise or fall. It just stretches endlessly forward, bordered by dark stone and ghost-light moss. You're not tired. Not hungry. You just are. Eventually, the path opens into a cavern. No, not a cavern, a cathedral. Vast. Hollow. Silent. Its ceiling curves so high above you, it disappears into mist. The walls are carved with murals, your story, beat for beat. You see the storm, the island, the bell, the feast, the doorless hut, the feather. You see yourself in 100 poses, always walking forward, always choosing, always one step ahead of whatever was chasing you. In the center of the room stands a single object, a compass, but not the kind you've seen before. This one floats, suspended in the air by strands of gold light. Its needle spins, not wildly, but slowly, patiently, like it's considering every possible direction at once. It clicks with perfect rhythm. Not lost, deliberating. As you approach, the compass speaks. Not in words. In feeling. It asks a question without sound. Do you still wish to return? You pause. Because here, at the end, or is it the beginning, you're no longer sure what return even means. Return to the world you knew? To the man you were? To a version of reality where islands don't breathe and maps don't rewrite themselves? The compass spins faster. Another feeling washes over you. Or do you want to continue? Not to escape. To explore. The room pulses. From the walls, doors begin to appear. Dozens. Then hundreds. Each glowing faintly. Some tall. Some squat. Some shaped like hourglasses, or ship hulls, or empty picture frames. They're all possible paths. None labeled, none explained. And in the center, beneath the compass, one final portal. It's not a door. It's a hole in reality. Circular. Black. Spiraling inward. The map in your coat ignites, then turns to ash. The spiral on your wrist pulses once, then vanishes. The bottle, long since emptied, glows from within your coat and splits into dust that floats upward like fireflies. The ship, your ship, appears behind you. But this time, no longer physical. It's memory. Energy. Your soul's echo. A vessel of pure intention. You don't board it. You become it. Your thoughts stretch into sails. Your memories knot into rope. Your spine becomes the mast. You hover now, halfway between what you were and what you're becoming. The compass floats closer, then dissolves into your chest. And the spiral opens. You don't jump. You glide. Historians, if they could see this, would abandon writing altogether. They'd understand that some voyages aren't for books or charts. They'd realize that the ocean is just the beginning, and the real unknown lies somewhere deeper. Somewhere sideways. As you pass through the spiral, the world folds. And you hear one last whisper in a voice that sounds like every version of yourself you've ever been. You are the island now. Then, quiet. Then, light. Then, you emerge not with a splash, but with a breath. A long, slow inhale as if you've surfaced from the deepest part of sleep. No crashing waves, no roaring skies, no island looming above you like a challenge. Just light, soft, warm, and endless. You're not on a ship. You're not on land. You're not quite anything anymore. You are. Drifting, yes. But not lost. Not even moving in the usual sense. You occupy a space that isn't a place. The in-between. The cartographer's blind spot. The silence between a wave's retreat and its return. Below you, glimpses. Scenes unfold like paintings half remembered. You see your crew again, versions of them. The cook running a cafe by the sea, humming tunelessly but content. The quartermaster teaching children how to tie knots under an ancient tree. Even the deckhand who disappeared is there, now a part of some merchant vessel's folklore, a whisper told on foggy nights. None of them remember you fully, but some part of them smiles when your name is spoken. You watch. You float. And then something shifts. Not time, not distance, focus. You feel yourself spiraling gently toward a point. A center. Not a return. A homecoming. You land on a shoreline you know. Because it is you. The island no longer looms, it welcomes. Its trees grow in spirals. Its stones hum familiar tunes. The birds call your name, and the wind answers in rhyme. This place is yours because you gave yourself to it fully. And now, it gives itself back. A door waits in the sand. No handle. No frame. Just a threshold. You walk through. On the other side, a beach at twilight. Real sky. Real stars. You could almost believe you've come full circle, except you haven't. This isn't the end. It's the opening. A journal lies in the sand. Yours. Open to the last blank page. You pick up the quill. The feather is the same one from before. Or perhaps it always was. And you write, I never discovered the island. I became it. And I'll still be here, long after the last ship forgets my name. You close the journal. Set it on the sand. The tide rises. It takes the book, the footprints, and the final trace of your former self. But not your story. That remains. Drifting in every wave, whispered in every storm, hidden in every compass that stutters when it points home. You, the pirate who got lost. And in doing so, found something no map could promise. A self that sails forever. Sweet dreams.